So no, I guess we want to get into this a little bit. We actually did a follow. We did kind of a follow up to some YouTube comments. So just so folks on the podcast understand where we're going, we are live on YouTube right now. We're kind of making a push to get to 1,000 subscribers. Right?
We're really close.
Yeah, we're close. We're really close, and so any help there would be great. Just subscribing, liking a video over there, and we're probably going to do a follow up to this main podcast with more of a smaller, condensed version of our thoughts on the pink letter, because I do have a thought on who wrote it, and I think I may know exactly who actually put pen to paper. And I think other people know too. It's been out there from what I found. I'll kind of tell you guys my progression in all of this and what I recently discovered. So to recap, Sir Matt, we had a video where we were talking about the pink letter. We had a great comment in that video, and we did a follow-up with Sir Jimmy, right? And as we're reading that comment, we get to the point where someone's talking about a 9-part series. I'm just going to jump into this. Is that okay? Just jump right in.
Go right ahead.
All right. And you just monitor the chat. Tell me if anybody wants to comment or something's going on here. But we kind of did this this follow-up, and we learned that someone, I think it was Admiral Kurd. Does that sound right? Admiral Kurd.
I believe so. Yeah. KIRD.
YouTuber. Yeah, name was dropped for us. So shout out to that individual. I did actually go watch one of his videos today where he breaks down kind of just like Winds of Winter and how it can't really fit into it possibly is going to be 2 volumes, which is interesting because I actually kind of wonder if somebody wasn't recommended to our channel from that video, just because we've been talking about that and I had no idea who that individual was. So, but supposedly this person is a Redditor as well and has Reddit thoughts and maybe a 9-part series on the idea that Sir Alistair Thorne wrote the pink letter. And so Sir Matt drops that on me, and I start thinking a lot of that made sense. We started thinking about the idea that the pink letter, you came up with the phrase, it's an inside job. You said to me, it's an inside job. And I was like, it just kept dawning on me because we're always thinking, is it Ramsay? Is it Mance? Was it Stannis? Did Melisandre have something to do with it? All these different things, but was it just an inside job? Did somebody else orchestrate it or commission it? And so it kind of got me thinking, and I was like, well, let's look at that. I was going over Sir Alistair Thorne, thinking through that live. You can actually see that video where I'm like totally, Sir Jimmy's like watching me like go through the progression of like, this would work, that would work. The one thing I could not fit together was Reek, and you can hear me say that in the video. I'm like, I don't know. How
he would know about Reek.
Yeah, how would he know about Reek? And that part of the letter was confusing to me and making the connection between Alistair Thorne. So hadn't done, I was like, all right. And then folks wanted to know where that 9-part, theory is laid out. I tried to find it. I could not find it. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to go do some research. I'm going to go do some digging. And I went off this idea. We were making all sorts of jokes off the podcast. Sir Matt and I were talking about everyone who could possibly have written it. Did somebody in King's Landing write it? I mean, we were just going down like this long list of, and just joking. Did Jon Snow write it himself? We were just having a good time. And I said, well, let's look at who actually handed him the letter. And I went, and it was this morning. I was just looking around. I was doing some digging, and I said, let me look at Clydus. This fella Clydus. Let me go see if he, like who is he? What I'm gonna know more about him. See if there's any ties to him and the pink letter. So I go to a search of Ice and Fire, and I look up when I type in pink letter, I type in Clydus, I type in various search terms, and I come up to the point where the first kind of Bolton letter shows up about a marriage. And Arya Stark and marrying his sister. Jon kind of says, I don't have a sister, right? Just brothers. And so Clydus was there, and he talks about the pink wax and Bolton's seal. And so there's Clydus. And as I was reading that, there's a description of Clydus's eyes. And it said that Clydus's eyes were dim pink eyes. And I was like, stop everything. Hold the phone here. Like one word can sort of lead you down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, all right, this is wild. This is wild. That's cool. So I went and looked up. I found it one more place. I really couldn't find anything else, but I found it twice in a dance. And I was like, okay, twice he's described, like the color pink is described with Clydus. And then Clydus is the one who brings the infamous pink letter with the pink smeared kind of wax later on. And and works closely with Maester Aemon, all of this stuff. So full credit here. I don't want to go any further without giving complete full credit. I start a search. I'm not huge on Reddit. Sir Matt is definitely more of that Reddit guy who gets on there, looks up theories and will kind of tell me something. And then a lot of times we'll read a theory. It'll take us down another rabbit hole or several rabbit holes, and we'll kind of add on to it. So I like a lot of what I was thinking. And some of the pieces that I was missing, like Alistair Thorne, how is he connected to Roose Bolton? How would he know about Reek? How would Clydus be connected? All of that. I hadn't quite gotten there. Again, this was this morning when I was kind of thinking through this. And I go and I find a 4-part Reddit theory, which we will put a link to down in the description. Fantastic. And to me now, Sir Matt, it is just canon in my head. I think I know exactly who's behind all of this.
Who's behind it, yeah.
Yeah. And so this was Gideon Wainwright. So posted by Gideon Wainwright. And this was like 4 years ago. And again, it is sort of a Bolton Conspiracy Part 1, Bolton Conspiracy Part 2, 3, and 4. So inside of that theory, he kind of makes this connection to the pink letter and does almost an examination of Roose Bolton and some of the figures and people around him and, especially during the time of when he's at Winterfell and how he got to that point, which is really, really, really cool. So the pieces that were filled in for me, and this is where I'm going to totally go to some of his theory and just kind of talk you guys through the missing gaps and what was I'm just thinking, okay, Clydus is involved. I knew that the stewards were up to no good. There's a little bit of when Sam is kind of promoted over, Sam becomes kind of the favorite to Maester Aemon, works with him closely. So did Clydus. And Clydus kind of feels maybe, you could infer slighted a little bit maybe. And the other stewards, Jon is all of a sudden elevated above them. You do even see, it's very easy to see that there is something going on brewing. I mean, Sir Alistair Thorne has been a thorn in Jon Snow's side, right? For so long. He's been such, he's not a fan. I don't think he likes the decisions that Jon is making. I think he thinks he should have been Lord Commander. He also thinks he's being sent off to his death. So that's all the stuff that was rolling around in our minds as we started into our research. And then I just found something that again, this theory, you can't find anything better. I've been looking for it. And if you can, leave a comment down below, leave a link because we would love to check it out. But the first part of this is just that Roose Bolton is a mastermind. So let's talk for a second, Sir Matt, just about how cunning Roose Bolton is, right? And how
I mean, he basically goes, you look at just what he does to Theon. I mean, that's really smart, and how he manipulates Theon into getting Kaelin and everything he does with him, with basically torturing him, convincing him he's somebody else. Now, I will say that book Roose, in my kind of headcanon, I consider to be slightly less intelligent than show Roose, but I think the show version of him does a really good job of kind of he is a really good manipulator. Excuse me, Roose Bolton. I was thinking Ramsay. Excuse me. Yes, Roose Bolton. Yeah. Roose Bolton. Yes, Roose Bolton is a master manipulator. In the books. Yeah. A master, and way better. It's actually the opposite, right? Where Ramsay, I think, is a little more intelligent in the book Ramsay. Show Roose is a little less intelligent than book Roose. Roose Bolton, is a total manipulator. Remember, the only thing that I can say about him where you find odd is that he doesn't recognize Arya as his cupbearer. Remember, in the show, it's Tywin Lannister, but in the books, it's Roose Bolton that Arya serves as the cupbearer for in Harrenhal, which is actually the chapter we will be discussing, not this week, but next week, is when he arrives. But he's really the one kind of behind the Red Wedding. I mean, if he's a big part of that. And he's positioning himself. You look at all of the comments he makes right? Through when he's with Robb and stuff like that, leading up to it, and you know, positioning and jockeying himself for power.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, he just so often, like we have a lot of our masterminds, our Game of Thrones players who they kind of tell you what, like they give you hints. George allows them to give us hints or some internal thoughts or even a conversation with someone else, and you start to know what their plans are, their motives, their intentions. Roose is scarier because we don't really know. All of a sudden, he's the surprise at the Red Wedding and stuff, and alliances that he's making and scheming and stuff, and then you wonder what all communication's going on between him and his bastard son. You know, like early on in those books, and it from the get-go, we're told to keep an eye on him, to not trust him. I mean, there's this weird kind of lore around them being, you know, taking the skins of their enemies, and just his eyes are described. I mean, like there's the whole. I mean, what is it called? The bolt-on theory, right? That whole theory is very interesting, and we've covered it multiple times here. Numerous creators have covered it, and it's very interesting. So let me make one connection between Clydus, okay? Clydus, who is not a maester, he's a steward, but he served under Maester Aemon. And this one quote was what I found when I was reading this morning, and it just stopped me in my tracks. And it's also in this Reddit theory, and it's awesome. So Clydus returned to stir the wine. He's 60 if he's a day, an old man. He only seemed young compared with Aemon. Short and round, he had the dim pink eyes of some nocturnal creature. A few white hairs clung to his scalp. So the words like nocturnal creature, bolt-on, Roose, vampires.
We did a big video. We've done
pink.
2 videos on the bolt-on theory. Yep.
Right. Blood, drinking, pink, hunting wolves, skinning wolves. The whole thing. The more I kept reading about Clydus throughout the entire, I'm like, if you want to talk about somebody who maybe actually, even if he got a raven from Roose and might have actually put pen to paper, Clydus might have actually been the one to legitimately put pen to paper and seal it with a pink wax, an old pink wax, a smeared pink wax that he had prior. The very nice, clean, and pristine pink wax that came in the first letter with the long, spiky kind of handwriting from Ramsay Bolton. Snow, whatever you want to call him. We call him a lot of different names here. But so to me, like looking at Roose, so this theory starts off kind of examining him as being this master kind of player of the Game of Thrones, and also issuing letters, using his son to issue letters, and then correspondence that like subtly, you can't exactly tie it back to him, right? If you're a master at this game, there's a fall guy. There's somebody, even if it's his son, his bastard son, he now has a new wife who's pregnant, who he's hoping, you know, he's going to have more sons with. And so, you know, he's also, if you buy into the whole bolt-on theory, maybe he doesn't need sons. Or maybe he's going to use their skins. I don't know. But you know, so just that alone, this being a big bad guy, you know, is interesting. And then the second part to this, and I'm just giving you guys a quick summary. Again, I don't want to do it any injustice. It's an amazing theory. So then the second part is Clydus, and it is Maesters, and it is Lady Dustin talking to Theon and saying that it's the gray rats that run everything. It's the Maesters who are in charge, and that Roose sees and knows all of this. Roose has 3 Maesters with him at Winterfell. He knows how to manipulate people through words, and he also, I mean, you go clear back to Harrenhal and Qyburn, and the relationship that he had with Qyburn, right, is interesting, and the leeching, and just he seems to know quite a bit. It seems like he really doesn't need maybe a maester to, like he might, maybe for their healing abilities or for the leeching or someone just to be an aid or a help, but like he himself is smart and clever enough that he doesn't need it. He might dictate to them to pen something, and then again, it's, you know, as some of the lords and ladies might believe, it's the maesters who are kind of up to no good, and putting their own words in these letters, and maybe that's something Bolton or that Roose is thinking about. But and we know also, and I think it's a preview chapter where Stannis kind of says he captures a maester, and that maester had just sent a map of Stannis's camp back to Roose. So he does use maesters to spy. They're not just giving him, he's not sending his own men out there. He's sending these men who are supposed to be kind of like working for the betterment of the realm, but yet like this person was sent in. I mean, they're spying, and they're I don't know, they're placing their allegiance, loyalty, or whatever to Roose. And so that was kind of interesting. So could Roose also be doing that with Clydus? Was sort of the question. Is it like, is he somehow now gotten close to like, is there already a pre-existing issue at Castle Black? Is there already a problem that the stewards don't like, that they're upset? Alistair Thorne, you kind of take that cast of characters and you say, is there something going on there that I can use to get rid of Jon Snow? Now, and then you go back and you say, well, why would Roose Bolton want to get rid of Jon Snow? And there's tons of reasons. And this guy goes through and does a great job of laying them all out. I think Sir Matt could probably think off the top of his head a few reasons why you wouldn't want to have Jon Snow sitting up there, maybe indirectly challenging a claim, even if Jon doesn't want to challenge it. Just his existence alone, and that his proximity to Winterfell challenges his claim to the Bolton claim.
And what's to say that anybody hasn't overheard Stannis offering Jon that claim, and whether they heard Jon say, "Well, I accept it or I don't." There, rumors spread and all this stuff that maybe Jon's going to go, maybe Jon's going to go do it, and so we need him out. And here's some reasonings why, and it provides more. Now,
Yeah,
I'll leave it there. I'll wait for you to explain more, and then I'll pose some questions to you to kind of chat to pose some challenges, so that way we can go through and say, well, here's where this works in, here's where this works.
Yeah, exactly. I got you. So okay, so if Roose is looking for that advantage to kind of deal with maybe a possible threat, or to cause some issue, or maybe want Stannis to fall back, acquire his wife and child or whoever else, we don't, there's reasons why he would want to maybe have his own people in charge, or to have Jon deposed and what have you. So how do you make the connection? Like, is he just sending correspondence to Clydus? Is that what's actually going on? So Alistair Thorne this is where I couldn't really connect the dots, and this theory does a great job of it. There is a hooded figure in Winterfell that people don't know who he is, and this Redditor proposes. So again, Gideon Wainwright is his handle. Proposes that the hooded figure is actually is actually Sir Alistair Thorne, and that he shows up there based on his hand gesture, his placement on his dagger, on the hilt of it, on his insults to Theon, mocking Theon. Because that was the thing I said, how would Sir Alistair Thorne, going back to my original thing before I had read any of this theory, I said, how would Thorne know about Reek and Theon and all of that? And if you say, like, if George wrote in a hooded figure to make that connection, to have someone, because Reek is the interesting X factor that shows up in that letter. Right. In the pink letter. I think that's the one that really kind of like, well, like when you look at that, okay, someone had to know Reek and had to know the significance of that individual and know that person escaped, So then you look at the hooded figure and you say, okay, that person's nearby. They're in Winterfell at the same time when the escape is happening, encounters Theon. And so that could be someone giving, if Alistair is the one giving communication back to Clydus or Roose or whatever, if Roose is commissioning this through Alistair Thorne, the hooded figure, that would be interesting. And the reason the question is, why would Thorne be in Winterfell? Why would Alistair Thorne be in Winterfell? He was sent on a ranging north, right? He says several times, he says directly to Jon, to the Lord Commander, this is a death sentence. You're sending me to my death. You're not hanging me. You're not taking my head like you did Jaina Slint, but you are essentially sending me to my death. And so instead, he goes off and I would say kind of fakes that he's complacent. Maybe does go, maybe is smuggled back across the wall or goes south or whatever. He's been there. He knows his way around. And then he decides, instead of going north, I'm going south. And I'm going to take what's going on here, what's festering up here, and I'm going to take it down to Roose Bolton, and I'm going to have words. And I'm going to talk about the, because he knows, too, that there's almost an alliance between Jon and Stannis. He knows that this fight is happening. You're not supposed to take part. The Night's Watch takes no part, right? But still, I mean, I think he's, so we don't know what that whole conversation is like. But there's that's how I think maybe he would have gotten there.
Right.
And then you go back to it's two stewards who are saying for the watch. The stewards already had some issues with Jon there. And I think all of that is interesting. So really with this Redditor, final thought here on this post, this Bolton conspiracy, is that Roose actually just commissions it. He commissions it to be written. He didn't go as far as to say that Clydus actually wrote it. And I was just thinking about the pink wax and it being smeared and you maybe reusing that wax button from before if you still had it. I can't remember if they threw it in the fire. I don't remember exactly. I think Jon crumbles it in his hand. I think he the first letter where Arya is to be, air quote, Arya, fake Arya, is supposed to be married to Ramsay. I don't remember what happens, but I think that wax is still laying around. And I think it's recycled, possibly, by Clydus. There's no mention of the characteristics of the handwriting. It doesn't look like George tells us what the handwriting looks like of Ramsay, and then doesn't tell us that it's the same handwriting again later on. Sets it up, and literally, by the way, here's another big clue. There's a phrase in Dance where Clydus says, only, and he uses the word, only the Boltons use pink wax. Only them. Well, unless Clydus reuses it. Like that whole kind of it could only be them. Well, when you say that, then you're kind of saying, okay, pay attention to that, right? Clearly, they're not the only. You're dealing in an absolute there. Someone else is using it or reusing it or has gotten a vial.
If you want to make it look like it's the Boltons, then you use pink wax. Yeah. So so some of the things, initially we did a video on this last week with Sir Jimmy, where we were responding to fan comments about who wrote the pink letter, a video we did before, because we're doing this live, and so we have some more people jumping in. So we had somebody send us a comment on that video, and they were saying, Alliser Thorne. So that's when we started talking about it a little bit last week, and so now we're saying, well, maybe it's Alliser Thorne and Clydus right here. The combination of the two, because some of the interesting things are you're gonna need when you look at the pink letter, how would Roose Bolton, who is supposedly the author, or excuse me, Ramsay Bolton.
Oh yeah, Ramsay
is the supposed author of the thing. How would he? A lot of this information, it feels like he wouldn't know, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in order to know this, it seems kind of odd, because it's then you start going on the list. Well, who would actually know all of this information, right? I want my Reek back. Well, then when Jon gets the letter, Jon's like, I don't know who Reek is, right? So it's an odd letter because it doesn't all add up. He doesn't know a lot of this information, because it's like Jon doesn't know some of this information. Some of the stuff that's written in it, Ramsay should not know. People say, well, Stannis should not know. So I think maybe it is kind of a combination of things being passed back and forth, and somebody like an Alliser Thorne who says, when Jon sends him up, I will be back one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I will be back. Yeah. And Alliser Thorne is his story is so interesting, because in the show, right, he's there, he's part of it, and Jon gets resurrected, kills him. Well, in the books, he's gone. Jon sends him away. He's not there for it. And if we can sometimes I think you can use the show to project forward and say, I think some of the things we see between season 5 and the end, season 6 and season 8, I think that some of those, it is safe to say that some of those events will happen pretty similarly. Some may be totally different. I think Hodor is one that we look at and we say we're pretty much on board that Hodor 100% happening. Yeah. Alliser Thorne becomes a little more interesting because of his potential history as a Targaryen loyalist. I think we like the idea that he could maybe be a good guy, maybe not, who knows.
Right.
But I think it's probably pretty likely that his story will end the same and that Jon will end up executing him.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is that right now in the book, what would be the reason? In the book, there is no reason that Jon would want to execute him as one of the conspirators, right? So when you take that little nugget and you think, why did the show do that? Why did they do that? Well, because George might have revealed to them that he was a part of a conspiracy to do something that would agitate or push Jon over the edge. One of the really cool, the title of that letter is Bastard, right? I mean, it's Bastard. And every single time, Sir Alistair knows that when Jon does something rash, or he's like, you can push his button by calling him a bastard. Jon thinks about it during a fight that he has with Robb. He has a flashback where he's like, I'm the Lord of Winterfell. And Robb says, you can never, like, just because he beat Robb and it was some kind of King of the Hill situation, right? The kids are playing. And Robb says, you can't be, you're a bastard, right? And that hurts Jon to think about that. Well, it's just a game, I just won it. And then as a little kid, Robb says something like that to him. So you have Jon thinking about that, and then you see the effects, like Alistair picks up on it very easily, calls him Lord Snow, and then switches to bastard because he knows it irritates him.
And why would Ramsay, who is also a bastard, call Jon a bastard as something to anger him? That's kind of odd.
Right.
I've always thought that that's kind of odd because it's not that we see it often, but Tyrion doesn't call other dwarfs. I mean, he doesn't call other fools,
like imps and stuff. No,
right? Yeah,
right. Well, and one of the other things, the final line there too, is that he not only does he start with like the bastard term, then it goes to trueborn Lord of Winterfell, something that's really gonna throw Jon off. Like I'm a trueborn whatever, and you're like, wait a second, what? But are you? Why would you really just be assertive? I don't know. It seems so. The whole Ramsay thing, I don't know. It's a, for me, I'm starting to drift more and more away from like Ramsay, and it's just like maybe a Roose situation. Because when you go look at, let's say, Mance, here's the thing with Mance. People often forget that he has that ruby, that he has the, like, Melisandre's kind of, Melisandre says that he is bound to her, what is it? Soul, something like that. There's a binding, like he will do as Melisandre bids. So unless Melisandre is directing him to, to write that or something, that just doesn't seem like something Mance would want to do. He wouldn't want, Jon kind of saves his life. I mean, Jon's doing good things for the wildlings. Why would he want that to happen? There is some kind of, we've talked about this several times, Tormund, wildling leadership, vow, possibly secret communications, secrets embedded in the letter. That was a good one. I liked that theory that was out there as to, like, maybe there's some hidden stuff in there that the wildlings are picking up on from the whole, Bael the Bard situation. But it just seems to go counter to who Mance is. And then Melisandre, even more so. And then Stannis, that doesn't seem to be in his character. He's almost a, what do you call it, like a lawful good. Like he's not someone who's going to really, like, almost to his detriment. He's not going to, resort to some tactic like that. So Stannis is kind of ruled out. And then you go back to who's been doing this all along, Roose. Now, Roose is not putting pen to paper. He's going to use his son, or when he does, even in the letter, he's going to make sure that the blame goes somewhere else, or he is really, really, really sure that he's going to come out on top and then make his move. You know what I mean? He's just that master kind of schemer. So, if the opportunity presents itself and Sir Alistair Thorne comes knocking on your door and saying, hey, we have an issue up there at Castle Black, and maybe correspondence was already going on and they knew about it. I mean, these are all guys who, the conspirators at Castle Black are, a lot of them anyways, are there prior to Jon showing up. And they are more so ingrained in this way of, like, the wildlings being here, it's not good. They don't think it's a good thing. They don't like the decisions that are being made. And so, they could have been hiding communication from him. Who knows? I mean, I don't really know. That's kind of tinfoil me just throwing that out there. But yeah, I just think there's way more to the idea that it's a group of people and that they were working towards this. And I'll tell you right now, I cannot the number of times where Clydus goes up and he's afraid. His skin is described as pink as well. Other people's are too, but like too many times the word pink is used around Clydus. And I'm like, whether he was given directions by Alistair or Roose, it feels like there's a combination of people working on the letter, and that you had to have someone who knew what was going on in the north and down in Winterfell, like at the Wall and at Winterfell. You seem to have to know both pieces to write that letter. That's why when we look at it, it's such a really good letter, because we as the reader look at it and go, wow, okay, we know all of that, and it sort of makes sense. But then when you start to look at it from the perspective of one character, you say, well, how do they know all of that? And that's what a point of view read, story will do to you. It'll drive you insane. Like, how did they get that information? And then you throw in secret figures and magic and all sorts of stuff. And the next thing you know, we're thinking Hot Pie wrote it. I mean, it's just like crazy.
That's where you go. Yeah, it's an endless circle of, well, hold on, because you keep going back and forth and trying to piece it all together. Yeah. And I'm with you. Some of the characters, I think, when you really start to put pen to paper, I suppose, and really start to look at it. Stannis, it's unlikely. I think it's really unlikely that Stannis wrote it. I mean, if the letter's true, that's the other thing. If the letter's true, then Stannis would already be dead, right? So, that's you can toss Stannis out. I mean, that when you think about why would it seems unlikely to me that Ramsay would write a letter claiming that Stannis is already dead before he's fought him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, like, Roose can kind of say this is on his, like, because I've always said Jon is almost justified in the fact that this was an attack on the Watch. This is an attack on the Night's Watch, and that they should have maybe rallied behind him more so. Here's something else interesting. It's all kind of, I'm thinking through this, like, to attack your own Lord Commander and to not just have it happens pretty abruptly, and it's like, this is the guy, you're outnumbered up there. Like, the wildlings there's tons of wildlings. Right. There's like some of the Queen's men are up there. It's killing Jon causes a lot of instability. So somebody was taking already rooted kind of issues that were there among the stewards and the divide that was there, that was festering, and someone stirred it up. It's like this. It's like you can almost see the hornet's nest sitting there, and Roose saying, I'm not going to poke it, but I am going to tell somebody else to go poke it. I'm going to send this guy back up there, and it will be an advantage to me. I mean, I was thinking, like, what are more of the advantage? Well, some of the demands in the pink letter are like, return this person, give this person back. They're all things that Jon can't do, and Jon won't do. And so it's literally to just provoke him to do something that's going to get him in trouble. And and it's interesting that, like, you have a previous correspondence where invitations are sent, or it's being made known that Ramsay's marrying Arya Stark, and there's not much like that provoking and that stirring that's going on, that poking of the hornet's nest is not necessarily happening as much as it is now. And so that's where, again, if you look at, like, when the letter is written, there's some good resources out there on how the preview chapters and Winds of Winter can help you figure out that when it was written, the timing maybe of it. But then I think you have to go and kind of know who maybe is orchestrating it or commissioning it. But yeah, Roose also could get, then, if there's instability up there, if he has a chance to capture and take Stannis' wife and his child and his Red Witch, if that actually happened, or like something, I mean, that would be. Could the Watch even do that though? Like the guys who are conspiring against Jon, could they even? They're not supposed to take part, right? So they're not going to give that person up. But it's just to cause maybe, I don't know, just to take that person out. If you can put Alistair Thorne in charge, if you're Roose, that's a better guy for you possibly. Just like the Lannisters were trying to put forward Slint. They put Slint, they sent him up there, and we're hoping that he would be kind of an informant or an influence for them, a loyalist up at the Wall, and then he's beheaded, for his behavior. But yeah, I just think it's all really, really interesting. And I when you think about pen to paper, I just keep thinking of Clydus being somebody who might have actually penned it, who might have actually penned it out under directions, written directions, or verbal directions, whatever it might be. I think that would be in
collusion with other members of the Night's Watch, and particularly Alistair Thorne.
Yeah, Yeah, and that hooded figure is the one that was kind of like, okay, I'd never really. A lot of people speculated different folks for that individual, and you
Some
know,
people think it's just Theon's imagination.
right. Some people think it's just the ghost. You're right. They think it's just actually, yeah. So I don't know. Food for thought, I guess. Folks can kind of chew on that and let us know what you think. And again, like I said, I always like to. Because I mean, Sir Matt, we've done this time and time again, where we start to research something. Back in this whole thing started when we were researching R plus L equals J, and we thought we weren't reading the Reddits, and we were like, oh, we're onto something here. Yeah, so is everyone else, and it's great. It's fantastic. What I like to find is somebody who can lay it out really well and articulate it really well. And we were looking for that 9-part, theory. I didn't see it, so if anybody has that, I would love to also push that forward and have folks go check that out. But at least I found like a 4-part, 5-parter for you guys to go read, and I'll put the links down there in the description. But fantastic stuff. I'm sold on it. I'm more solidified now more than ever in my thoughts on who wrote it or who had it commissioned or who's behind the whole thing. And actually, I think in the episode, we kept kind of saying, like, I don't know, like it's nothing. Like with George, like he makes you almost want to buy into some. We were talking about R plus L equals J with Sir Jimmy, and like at the end of it, we just kind of come down to like it probably is what it is, right? It most likely our first kind of like it's probably this. There's so many other situations where like we're so surprised and shocked that something that seems straightforward or that like we should be able to kind of connect the dots a little easier, it's more difficult because all the other events that George will throw at us where characters have different identities or people come back from the dead or powers that things that you can do, he keeps us guessing in that way. He surrounds something that's more straightforward by some craziness to really throw us off, and I love it. That's why he's a master writer. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, hey, guys, let us know. Leave us a comment. Let us know what do you guys think about the potential of Alistair Thorne being the one who wrote the pink letter.